We gather today to witness the sacred union of Donovan Park and Dorothy Adesola in holy matrimony. Wait. Donovan's voice cut through the ceremony like glass shattering. The officiant stopped mid-sentence, confusion spreading across his elderly face. Murmurs rippled through the guests. Dorothy's heart hammered against her ribs. "Donovan," she whispered, her Nigerian accent suddenly feeling too thick in her mouth. He pulled his hand away from hers. Then, loud enough for every person in that ballroom to hear, he spoke. "I can't marry her. I'm sorry, but I just can't. This was a mistake." The words hung in the air like poison. Dorothy heard gasps, heard the sudden explosive clicking of phone cameras. Her mother's sharp intake of breath. Her father rising from his seat. "Donovan, what are you?" Dorothy started, but he cut her off. "Look, Dorothy, you're a nice person. But let's be real." His eyes raked over her body with barely concealed disgust. "You're not what I thought you'd be. You're too much. Too big, too different, enormous. My mother was right, I was trying to be progressive, but this isn't going to work. I can't spend my life with someone who doesn't fit into my world. Someone who'll always stand out for the wrong reasons." The ballroom erupted. Shocked exclamations in Korean. Camera flashes exploding like fireworks. Dorothy stood frozen, her beautiful dress suddenly feeling like a costume, her carefully styled natural hair feeling like a spotlight of difference. "You knew what I looked like," Dorothy managed, her voice shaking but audible. "You pursued me. You proposed. You." "I know what I did," Donovan interrupted, his voice almost bored now. "And I'm correcting my mistake before it's too late. I'm sorry it had to be this public, but you weren't listening to my hints. You kept pushing for this wedding, and I just can't." Chairman Park stood abruptly, his face red. "Donovan, we discussed this. The business arrangement with the Adesola family. Find another way, father," Donovan said coldly. "I'm not marrying her. Not today, not ever." Dorothy felt like she was drowning. Every eye in the room was on her. Every phone recording her humiliation. She could see her father's devastated face, her mother crying, her bridesmaids looking horrified. The smug expressions on some of the Korean society women who'd never accepted her. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. Suddenly, the massive ballroom doors exploded open. The sound was so violent that every head whipped around. The whispers died instantly, cut off like someone had severed a wire. A man stood in the doorway. Dorothy's breath stopped. He was tall, easily 6 feet, with a presence that made the enormous ballroom suddenly feel claustrophobic. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and an expression of controlled fury that made even Chairman Park take an involuntary step backward. His black suit was impeccable, clearly custom-made, with details that whispered of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. His dark hair was styled back, revealing a face that was beautiful in a dangerous way, like a blade catching moonlight. He walked down the aisle with measured steps, and the crowd parted like he was Moses, and they were the Red Sea. No one spoke. No one moved. Dorothy couldn't breathe. He stopped directly in front of her, ignoring Donovan entirely. His eyes were intense, locked onto hers, and Dorothy felt like he was seeing straight through her skin to something deeper. "My name is Hyun Jae," he said, his voice low and precise, speaking English for her benefit. Then he switched to Korean, his voice carrying through the silent ballroom. "And I'm going to marry her." The ballroom exploded into chaos. Welcome back to Afro-Korean Obsession. Like and subscribe for more. Donovan's face went from pale to purple. "What? Who the hell do you think you?" Hyun Jae turned to him, and whatever Donovan saw in his eyes made him stumble backward, words dying in his throat. "You just ended your wedding," Hyun Jae said, his voice quiet but somehow more terrifying than if he'd shouted. "I'm starting mine. Do we have a problem?" Chairman Park found his voice, though it shook. "You can't just, we don't even know who you." "Yes, you do." 2 words. That's all it took. Dorothy watched as recognition and pure fear washed over Chairman Park's face. She saw the same reaction from several of the older guests, powerful businessmen and politicians who suddenly looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. Hyun Jae turned back to Dorothy. His expression softened barely, but enough that she could see it. He reached up and gently brushed away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "You don't know me," he said quietly in English, his accent suggesting years spent abroad. "You have every reason to refuse. But I'm offering you a choice right now. Marry me, walk out of here as my wife, and no one will ever humiliate you like this again." He paused, his thumb still against her cheek. "Or walk away. Leave them all behind. Either way, this ends now." Dorothy stared at him. Her mind was screaming that this was insane, that she should run, that this man was clearly dangerous. But as she looked into his eyes, she didn't see pity. She didn't see disgust. She saw respect. And something that looked almost like recognition, like he knew her somehow. And after being torn apart in front of hundreds of people, after having her worth measured and found wanting by a man she'd trusted, the way this stranger looked at her, like she mattered, like she had value, made something fierce and desperate surge in her chest. "Yes," Dorothy heard herself say, her voice clearer than she'd expected. "I'll marry you." Something flickered in Hyun Jae's eyes, satisfaction, yes, but also something warmer. He turned to the officiant, who looked like he might faint. "Continue the ceremony. Her name stays the same. His gets replaced with mine. Everything else proceeds as planned." "You can't, this is my wedding," Donovan started, but Hyun Jae looked at him again. "One more word," Hyun Jae said softly, "and I'll make sure everyone here learns exactly why you needed this marriage so badly. The gambling debts. The money you embezzled from your father's company. The videos from that room in Gangnam that you thought were deleted." He smiled, and it was terrifying. "Sit down. Shut up. Be grateful I'm letting you leave with your dignity." Donovan collapsed into a chair, all fight gone. The ceremony proceeded like a fever dream. Dorothy heard herself repeating vows to a man she'd met 5 minutes ago. Felt him slip a platinum band onto her finger. Where had he gotten a ring? His hands were steady while hers shook. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Hyun Jae leaned in and kissed her softly, briefly, but the touch sent electricity racing through her entire body. "Breathe," he whispered against her lips. "You're safe now. I promise." Then he took her hand and led her down the aisle, away from the wreckage of her first wedding and into a marriage to a complete stranger, all in the span of 20 minutes. A black Mercedes waited outside, sleek and expensive. Hyun Jae helped her arrange her enormous dress inside the car with surprising gentleness, then slid in beside her. As the car pulled away from the Shilla Hotel, Dorothy finally found her voice. "What just happened?" "You got married," Hyun Jae said calmly, as if this were perfectly normal. "Just not to who you expected." "But why? Who are you? How did you even know?" Dorothy's questions tumbled over each other. "All good questions. I'll answer them." But first, he pulled out his phone and made a call in rapid Korean. Dorothy caught enough to understand he was giving instructions about the wedding venue, about guests, about managing the story that would hit social media within minutes. When he finished, he looked at her. "Your dress is beautiful, by the way. You look stunning." The compliment, delivered in that calm voice after everything that had just happened, made Dorothy want to laugh hysterically or cry or both. "You crashed my wedding and married me, and you're complimenting my dress?" "I'm trying to ease you into this conversation." A hint of something, amusement, touched his lips. "But if you'd prefer, we can jump straight to the difficult parts." "Yes, let's do that." Dorothy turned to face him fully, her dress crunching in the confined space. "Who are you?" "Really? My name is Hyun Jae. No family name that matters anymore. I own businesses across Seoul, restaurants, construction, import-export, entertainment venues. Some of those businesses are entirely legal. Others operate in areas the law prefers not to examine too closely." He held her gaze. "I'm what people call a fixer. When Seoul's elite have problems they can't solve through legitimate means, they come to me. I make things disappear. I make deals happen. I collect information and use it strategically. Some people call me a criminal. Others call me a necessary evil. I prefer to think of myself as pragmatic." Dorothy's heart was pounding. "So you're, what? A gangster?" "A mob boss. Those are crude terms, but not entirely inaccurate. He studied her face. Are you afraid? She should be. She absolutely should be terrified. But looking at him, she realized she wasn't. Should I be? Not of me. Never of me. His voice was firm. But there are people who might try to use you to hurt me now. That's a consequence of what just happened that you need to understand. Then why did you do it? Why marry me? Hyun Jae was quiet for a long moment as the car wound through Seoul's evening traffic. 4 months ago, I attended a charity auction at the Lotte Hotel. You were there. Dorothy's eyes widened. I remember that night. I was bidding on a Nigerian sculpture. Vintage from Benin. It reminded you of home. His eyes held hers. There was a man there, drunk, making comments about you. About your body. Your appearance. Loud enough for his table to hear, quiet enough that you were supposed to pretend you didn't notice. Dorothy's breath caught. She remembered that night vividly. The sculpture had been beautiful, a piece of her heritage in a country where she constantly felt foreign. And yes, there had been a man, a businessman whose name she'd forgotten, who'd made increasingly vulgar comments while outbidding her. You kept your composure, Hyun Jae continued. Kept bidding, kept your head high. But I saw your hands shaking. Saw the moment you realized you couldn't afford to go higher, that you'd have to let it go. Saw your face when you won and his friends laughed. His jaw tightened. And I saw the flash of hurt before you covered it up and walked away like it didn't matter. You were there. Dorothy whispered. VIP section. I entered the bidding after you left the floor. Drove the price up until that drunk fool couldn't afford it anymore, then won. He paused. I had it delivered to you the next day. Anonymously. With a note. Dorothy's hand flew to her mouth. That was you? The note in Igbo, beauty recognizes beauty. I thought, I never knew who. I didn't want you to know. I just wanted you to have it. Hyun Jae looked out the window. But after that night, I couldn't stop thinking about you. I started looking into your life. I know how that sounds. Invasive. Stalkerish, even. But I needed to understand who you were. What did you find? Everything. He looked back at her. Dorothy Adesola, 28, daughter of Chibuzo Adesola, who runs one of Nigeria's largest import-export operations. You came to Seoul 3 years ago to manage his Korean operations. You learned Korean in 6 months, fluent enough to negotiate contracts without a translator. You built relationships, earned respect in a business community that didn't want to give it to you. You volunteer at an immigrant community center every Wednesday teaching English. You have a degree in international business from the University of Lagos and a minor in art history. Your favorite coffee shop is the one in Itaewon run by the Nigerian woman who makes chin-chin. You work 12-hour days and never complain. You're brilliant, kind, and you deserve so much more than what Donovan Park was offering you. Dorothy felt tears prickling her eyes again, but different ones this time. You investigated me. Yes, that's obsessive, controlling, crossing boundaries. He didn't look away. Yes, all of those things. But I won't lie to you, Dorothy. I don't regret it. Because I learned that you were engaged to a man who treated you like an inconvenience. Who was cheating on you, multiple women, including 2 hostesses at a club in Gangnam. Whose family saw you as a business asset, not a person. Who was planning to marry you, use your father's connections, and then carry on his life as if you were just decorative furniture. He was cheating? Dorothy felt like she'd been punched. Extensively. I have proof if you want it. Photos, receipts, hotel records. Hyun Jae's voice gentled. I'm sorry. I know this is a lot to process. The car pulled up to a building in Bukshan, not the modern glass towers of Gangnam, but a traditional Hanok neighborhood with tiled roofs and stone walls. The car turned into a private driveway, gates closing behind them, revealing a beautiful Korean house that blended traditional architecture with modern updates. This is home, Hyun Jae said. He helped her out of the car, managing her dress with unexpected care. Inside, the house was stunning: wooden beams, paper screen doors, heated floors, but with contemporary furnishings that made it feel warm rather than like a museum. Your room is this way. He led her down a hallway and opened a door to a spacious bedroom with a low bed, traditional screens, and modern amenities. I had clothes prepared. They should fit. Dorothy looked at the wardrobe. then back at him. You prepared clothes. You investigated me for months. You had a ring that fit perfectly. You crashed my wedding like you'd planned it. She took a breath. How long have you been planning this? Since I learned the wedding date. About 6 weeks. And if I'd said no? At the altar. Then I would have made sure Donovan Park's secrets went public anyway. Made sure you had a way out, even if it wasn't with me. I wasn't going to let you marry him, Dorothy. One way or another, I was stopping that wedding. He paused at the doorway. But I hoped you'd say yes. I hoped you'd choose me instead. Why? He looked at her for a long moment. Because you're extraordinary. And extraordinary things should be treasured, not discarded. Then he left, closing the door softly behind him. Dorothy sank onto the bed, her mind spinning. She was married. To a stranger. A dangerous stranger who owned criminal enterprises and had been watching her for months. This was insane. This was. Her phone buzzed. Texts flooding in. Her father, frantic. Her mother, crying. Her friends, horrified and confused. Social media notifications exploding. Dorothy turned off her phone. She stood and looked at herself in the full-length mirror. Her makeup was smeared. Her hair was coming loose from its elegant style. But her dress was still beautiful. And underneath the shock and fear and confusion, she realized something. She wasn't sorry. Donovan had humiliated her in front of hundreds of people. Had made her feel small, unworthy, wrong. And Hyun Jae, this dangerous, intense man who'd been watching her from the shadows, had stepped in and made her feel seen for the first time in years. Was it healthy? Probably not. Was it dangerous? Absolutely. Was it the beginning of something that could destroy her? Maybe. But standing there in her wedding dress, in a stranger's home, married to a man she'd met an hour ago, Dorothy realized something important. For the first time in 3 years, she felt like she had a choice. And she'd chosen this. Dorothy woke to sunlight streaming through paper screens and the smell of coffee. For a disorienting moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back, the wedding, Donovan's cruelty, Hyun Jae's intervention, the vows to a stranger. She was wearing the silk pajamas she'd found in the wardrobe last night, all in her exact size. Everything in this room had been prepared for her, which should have been creepy but somehow felt considerate. There was a knock at the door. Dorothy? May I come in? Hyun Jae's voice. Dorothy pulled a robe around herself. Yes. He entered carrying a tray, coffee, fresh fruit, rice, and banchan side dishes. He'd changed from his wedding suit into dark slacks and a black shirt, looking slightly less intimidating but no less compelling. Thought you might be hungry. We didn't exactly have a reception dinner. Dorothy accepted the coffee gratefully. What happens now? Hyun Jae set the tray on the low table and sat across from her, giving her space. Now we figure out what this marriage actually means. You're legally my wife as of last night. The paperwork will be filed today. But what that looks like practically is up to both of us to decide. What do you want it to look like? Honestly? He considered his words carefully. When I walked into that ballroom yesterday, I hadn't thought past stopping your humiliation. But now, he looked at her directly. I think we could help each other. You need protection from the fallout of yesterday. Donovan's family won't take this well, and Seoul society can be vicious. You need space to figure out your next move. I can provide that. And what do you get? A slight smile. A wife whose presence makes me look more legitimate. Someone intelligent to talk to. Someone who exists outside my usual world and can see things clearly. He paused. And truthfully, I like having you here. I like the idea of you being mine. The possessiveness in that last word should have frightened her. Instead, it sent heat through Dorothy's veins. So this is what? A business arrangement. It can be whatever we make it, Hyun Jae said. I'm not expecting love or romance. But I am hoping for honesty. Respect. Maybe partnership, eventually. Partnership in what? Your criminal empire. If you want. Or you could continue running your father's operations. Or start something entirely new. I'm not going to cage you, Dorothy. You're free to build whatever life you want. I'll support it. She studied him. Why do I get the feeling there's a catch? The catch is that being connected to me means being connected to danger. People who want to hurt me might try to hurt you. That's the reality of my world. I can minimize the risk, I have security, resources, ways to keep you safe. But I can't eliminate it entirely. Dorothy sipped her coffee thinking. Tell me about your world. Really tell me. If I'm going to be in it, I need to understand it. Over the next hour, Hyun Jae explained. He'd built his empire from nothing, orphaned at 15, surviving on Seoul's streets, running errands for gangs until he realized that power came not from violence, but from information. By 25, he'd established himself as the person Seoul's elite came to when they needed problems solved. Blackmail, money laundering, strategic rumors, sometimes just making people disappear from the public eye, nothing too violent, but all of it illegal in one way or another. I don't hurt innocents, he said. I don't traffic humans or drugs. I don't target the vulnerable. But I do manipulate, extort, and occasionally destroy people who deserve it. Does that make me a good person? No. But I sleep at night. Why are you telling me all this? Because you asked. And because I won't lie to you, Dorothy. Not about who I am or what I do. If you're going to be my wife, really be my wife, you deserve the truth. Dorothy processed this. And the people who might come after me? Rivals. People I've collected information on who would love to have leverage against me. The police, potentially, though I have enough connections to make that unlikely. Business enemies. He leaned forward. But here's what you need to understand, I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm still alive, still powerful, because I'm careful. I protect what's mine. And you're mine now. There was that possessiveness again, dark and thrilling. I want to learn, Dorothy heard herself say. Hyun Jae's eyebrows rose. Learn your world. How you think. How you operate. If I'm going to be in danger anyway, I'm not going to be helpless. Teach me. She set down her coffee cup. I'm not going to be the weakness that gets us both killed. For the first time since she'd met him, Hyun Jae's face broke into a full smile, not just the hint of one, but genuine, warm, transforming his features completely. I was hoping you'd say that. Over the following weeks, Dorothy received an education unlike anything she'd imagined. Hyun Jae taught her to read people, how a man's gaze shifts when he's lying, how women adjust their jewelry when they're nervous, how power players position themselves in a room. He showed her his network of informants, his encrypted communication systems, his files on every important person in Seoul. Information is currency, he explained one evening in his study, rain drumming against the traditional roof tiles. Violence is crude, obvious. But knowing someone's secrets? Knowing exactly what they fear losing? That's real power. Dorothy absorbed everything. She sat in on his meetings, at first silent, then gradually offering observations that made his associates regard her with wary respect. She learned that Hyun Jae's reputation wasn't built on brutality, but on surgical precision. He could destroy a person's career with a single well-placed phone call, or save them with equally calculated discretion. But it wasn't just business education. Hyun Jae arranged self-defense training with a former Special Forces operative. Dorothy learned to fight, to escape holds, to identify exits and threats. She learned to shoot, though Hyun Jae made it clear he hoped she'd never need to. You're a natural, the trainer commented after she landed a perfect combination that left him winded. Most people hesitate. You commit. Dorothy caught Hyun Jae watching from the doorway, something like pride in his eyes. Their relationship was evolving in ways Dorothy hadn't anticipated. They had dinner together every night, conversations flowing easily from Korean politics to Nigerian literature to philosophy. Hyun Jae was wickedly intelligent, well-read despite never finishing school, and surprisingly funny when he relaxed. His sentences grew longer around her, his usual terse communication style softening into actual conversation. You're different, Dorothy observed one night over wine on the wooden terrace overlooking their private garden. More talkative. Almost normal. I haven't had someone I could actually talk to in years, Hyun Jae admitted. Most people either fear me or want something from me. You do neither. I fear you a little, Dorothy said honestly. Good. Fear means respect. It means you understand what I'm capable of. He looked at her. But you're not afraid of me. There's a difference. He was right. Dorothy had seen him cold and dangerous with others, The way he'd made a business rival literally sweat during a negotiation, the ice in his voice when handling a threat. But with her, he was different. Patient. Gentle, even. He respected her space, never pushing for physical intimacy beyond the formal gestures required when they appeared in public together. Because they did appear in public. As Hyun Jae's wife, Dorothy had become someone in Seoul. The whispers had shifted from mocking to curious to respectful. She was no longer the foreign woman trying to fit in, she was Hyun Jae's wife, which made her untouchable. But Dorothy was also building her own identity. She'd taken over more of her father's operations, bringing fresh strategies that expanded their market share. She'd started consulting with some of Hyun Jae's legitimate businesses, her international expertise proving invaluable. And she'd begun planning something of her own, a foundation to help foreign women in Korea facing discrimination and abuse. "You're not content to just be my wife," Hyun Jae observed one evening, reviewing her foundation proposal. "Would you want me to be?" "God, no." He looked up at her, something warm in his dark eyes. "I want you exactly as you are, building your own empire while occasionally tolerating mine." The attraction between them was undeniable, growing stronger every day. The way Hyun Jae's gaze lingered on her when she wasn't looking. The way Dorothy's pulse quickened when he entered a room. The careful distance they maintained felt increasingly like a dam about to break. One night, about 6 weeks after their wedding, Dorothy found Hyun Jae on the terrace, staring out at the Seoul skyline. He looked troubled, which was unusual. "What's wrong?" she asked. He was quiet for a moment. "Do you regret it? Marrying me?" "No." The answer came immediately, surprising them both. "Do you?" "Not for a second." He turned to face her. "But I wonder if you feel trapped. If you stayed because you had no other choice, not because you wanted to." Dorothy moved closer. "I could leave. You've told me that multiple times. You've made sure I have my own money, my own resources. If I wanted to go, I could. Then why stay?" Because Dorothy paused, trying to articulate feelings she'd barely admitted to herself. "Because you see me. Actually see me. Not what I look like or where I'm from or what I can do for you. You see who I am and you think I'm worth something. Do you know how rare that is?" Hyun Jae stepped closer, his hand reaching up to cup her face. "You're worth everything." The kiss, when it came, felt inevitable. Desperate and tender, months of tension finally breaking free. Hyun Jae's hands slid into her hair, pulling her closer, and Dorothy melted into him, finally admitting to herself what she'd been feeling for weeks. She was falling in love with this dangerous, complicated man who'd crashed her wedding and stolen her heart without even trying. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Hyun Jae rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the moment I saw you at that altar." "Then why didn't you?" "Because I wanted you to want me back. Not because I rescued you or because you felt obligated, but because you chose me." His thumb brushed her cheek. "Did you choose me?" "Yes," Dorothy whispered. "I choose you." That night, their marriage became real in every sense. And afterward, lying in Hyun Jae's bed with his arms around her and Seoul's lights glittering through the windows, Dorothy felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Seen. Home. But happiness in Hyun Jae's world was never allowed to last long. The threat emerged 3 days later, during what should have been a routine business dinner. Hyun Jae had taken Dorothy to an upscale restaurant in Gangnam to meet with some associates. She'd worn a stunning emerald dress that hugged her curves, her natural hair styled in an elaborate updo. She'd grown confident in these settings, comfortable with the stares her beauty commanded. But halfway through dinner, Hyun Jae's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor changed, the warmth draining from his face, replaced by the cold mask she rarely saw anymore. "We need to leave," he said quietly, already signaling their security. "What's wrong?" "Not here." His hand was tight on hers as they left the restaurant, his security team forming a protective circle. Once in the car, he turned to her. "Someone just sent me photos of you. From this afternoon. At the community center. At the coffee shop. Walking through Itaewon." Ice flooded Dorothy's veins. "Someone's been following me? For at least 3 days, maybe longer." His jaw was tight with barely controlled fury. And they want me to know they can reach you anytime they want. Back at the house, Hyun Jae immediately went into crisis mode. More security posted at the house. Trackers on Dorothy's phone. New protocols for her movements. His people were already analyzing the photos, trying to identify who'd taken them. Who would do this? Dorothy asked. Several possibilities. But my guess? Hyun Jae's expression was grim. Kang Minho. He's been building a rival operation, trying to take over my territory. I've blocked him at every turn. This is him showing me he can hurt what I care about. So I'm leverage. A target. Yes. Hyun Jae looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw fear in his eyes. Dorothy, I can have you on a plane to Lagos tonight. Full security, new identity if needed. You'd be safe. No. Dorothy. No, she repeated, more firmly. Running makes me pray. You taught me that. If this Kang Minho wants to use me against you, he needs to learn that I'm not some helpless victim. I'm your wife. Your partner. And I don't run. Hyun Jae stared at her, then pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. You're extraordinary, he murmured against her hair. Terrifying and extraordinary. So what do? We make him come to us. On our terms, where we control everything. He pulled back to look at her. But Dorothy, you need to understand, this could get dangerous. Really dangerous. I know. She touched his face. But we do this together. Right? Together, he agreed. Over the next week, Hyun Jae orchestrated an elaborate trap. He let it leak through his network that he was distracted, worried about Dorothy, making mistakes. He withdrew from several deals, giving the appearance of weakness. And he made sure everyone knew that he and Dorothy would be attending a charity gala at the Grand Hyatt, a very public, very vulnerable appearance. Minho won't be able to resist, Hyun Jae explained as they prepared. He'll see it as the perfect opportunity to humiliate me, prove he's stronger. He'll make his move there. Dorothy wore a breathtaking gown, deep purple that made her skin glow, with a neckline that commanded attention and a slit that showed her confidence. She'd transformed over the past 2 months from the uncertain bride at that altar to a woman who knew her power. The gala was in full swing when they arrived. Dorothy could feel eyes following them, admiration, envy, curiosity. She and Hyun Jae had become Seoul's most intriguing couple, the dangerous underworld king and his beautiful foreign queen. Stay close to me, Hyun Jae murmured as they navigated the crowd. Minho is here. I can feel it. Dorothy spotted him first, a stocky man in his 40s with calculating eyes and a smile that didn't reach them, watching them from across the ballroom. When he caught her gaze, he raised his champagne glass in a mocking toast. That's him, she said quietly. I know. Let him come to us. It didn't take long. Minho approached during a lull in conversation, his smile predatory. Hyun Jae. And this must be the famous Dorothy. I've heard so much about you. Have you? Dorothy kept her voice pleasant, but she could feel the danger radiating from this man. Oh yes. The runaway bride who married our most eligible bachelor. Quite the story. His eyes raked over her in a way that made her skin crawl. Though I have to wonder, does she know what she's gotten herself into? What kind of man you really are? Careful, Minho. Hyun Jae's voice was quiet, deadly. I'm just making conversation, Minho said innocently. Getting to know your lovely wife. After all, she's become such an important part of your life. It would be a shame if anything happened to her. The threat was barely veiled. Dorothy felt Hyun Jae tense beside her, felt the violence barely controlled beneath his calm exterior. But before Hyun Jae could respond, Dorothy stepped forward. Mr. Kong, is it? I've heard about you too. You're the one who's been trying to build a reputation by attacking my husband's business. Tell me, how's that working out for you? Minho's smile faltered. Excuse me? I mean, from what I understand, every move you've made in the last 6 months has failed. Every deal you've tried to steal, every associate you've attempted to turn, all unsuccessful. That must be frustrating. Dorothy smiled sweetly. It's almost like someone's always 3 steps ahead of you. Minho's face darkened. You should be careful, Mrs. Hyun. You don't understand the world you're playing in. Don't I? Dorothy tilted her head. I understand that you sent someone to follow me last week. To photograph me. To try to scare my husband into making mistakes. But here's what you don't understand. I'm not some fragile flower that wilts under pressure. I'm Nigerian. We don't scare easy. And we definitely don't let bullies think they've won. She could feel Hyun Jae's surprise, his quiet pride. She could see Minho's rage building, his careful control slipping. You have no idea what I'm capable of, Minho hissed. And you have no idea what we're capable of, Dorothy countered. But you're about to find out. That's when Hyun Jae made his move. He pulled out his phone and within seconds, Minho's phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. And again. Minho looked down at it, and Dorothy watched his face transform from anger to confusion to pure horror. What is this? That, Hyun Jae said calmly, is every illegal transaction you've made in the last 3 years. Every bribe you've paid. Every law you've broken. I'm simultaneously sending it to the prosecutor's office, the financial crimes unit, and 3 major news outlets. It'll go public in, he checked his watch, about 5 minutes. You can't, Minho was panicking now, his composure completely shattered. You threaten my wife, Hyun Jae said, his voice dropping to something that made even Dorothy's blood run cold. You made her a target. You tried to use her to hurt me. That was your first mistake. Your last mistake was underestimating her. Security was already moving toward Minho as his phone continued buzzing, associates calling, his lawyer, media outlets requesting comment. You're finished in Seoul, Hyun Jae continued. Your organization is done. Your reputation is destroyed. And if you ever come near my wife again, I won't be satisfied with just ruining you financially. Do we understand each other? Minho was being escorted out by hotel security now, still clutching his phone, his face ashen. The other guests pretended not to notice, but Dorothy could feel the shift in the room, the renewed fear, the respect, the reminder of exactly who Hyun Jae was and what he could do. When they were alone again, or as alone as they could be in a crowded ballroom, Hyun Jae pulled Dorothy close. You stood up to him. You weren't supposed to do that. I know. Dorothy grinned. But it felt good. You're going to give me a heart attack, he murmured, but he was smiling. And I've never been more attracted to you in my life. They left the gala shortly after, the threat neutralized, Minho's empire crumbling even as they drove home through Seoul's neon-lit streets. In the car, Hyun Jae held Dorothy's hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. I love you, he said suddenly. Dorothy turned to him, her heart swelling. What? I love you, he repeated. I've been falling in love with you since that auction, if I'm honest. Since I watched you keep your head high when that bastard was mocking you. Since I learned everything about you and realized you were brilliant and kind and strong. I married you to save you from Donovan, but I'm keeping you because I can't imagine my life without you anymore. Tears pricked Dorothy's eyes, happy ones this time. I love you too. Even though you're a criminal and you stalked me and you crashed my wedding. I love you. Even though. Hyun Jae raised an eyebrow. Or because of? Dorothy laughed. Maybe a little bit because of. 3 months after the gala, Dorothy stood in her office at the newly opened Adesola Foundation headquarters in Gangnam. The walls were covered with photos of the women they'd helped, refugees, immigrants, Korean women escaping abuse, all finding support and resources through Dorothy's organization. It had launched 6 weeks ago and was already making waves in Seoul's nonprofit community. Hyun Jae appeared in the doorway, carrying coffee from her favorite shop. Your 3 p.m. meeting is here. The woman from the minister's office about the government partnership. Dorothy accepted the coffee with a kiss. Thank you. How did your meeting go? Successfully dull. Signed the contracts for the new restaurant. Everything legitimate, everything boring. He smiled. You're domesticating me. You're legitimizing yourself, Dorothy corrected. There's a difference. It was true. Over the past months, Hyun Jae had been gradually shifting his operations toward legal business. Not completely, he'd never be completely clean, his past would always exist. But he was building something he could be proud of, something they could build together without constantly looking over their shoulders. The transformation hadn't been easy. He'd had to cut ties with some associates, walk away from lucrative but illegal deals, establish himself in legitimate circles where his reputation made people nervous. But with Dorothy by his side, brilliant, respected, bringing credibility through her foundation and business acumen, doors were opening that had been closed before. "I have something for you," Hyun Jae said after her meeting concluded. "A proposal, actually." Dorothy raised an eyebrow. "Another proposal?" The first one was quite dramatic enough. "This one's different." He pulled out a small box and Dorothy's heart skipped. "We got married in chaos, in the middle of a disaster, with you in shock and me crashing through like some kind of action movie villain. I never gave you a choice to celebrate it properly. To have the wedding you actually wanted." He opened the box, revealing a stunning ring, not ostentatious, but clearly expensive, with intricate metalwork that blended Korean and Nigerian design elements. "Dorothy Adesola, my wife, my partner, the woman who sees all of me and loves me anyway, will you marry me again? Properly this time? With your family there, with our friends, with time to plan and celebrate instead of running." Dorothy felt tears streaming down her face. Yes. God, yes. The second wedding took place 2 months later in a beautiful fusion ceremony. They held it at a traditional Hanok venue in Bucheon, with Dorothy's family flying in from Lagos, her parents, her siblings, her grandmother who cried through the entire ceremony. Hyun Jae's chosen family was there too, his most trusted associates, the few people he considered friends, the staff who'd watched him transform over the past months. Dorothy wore a dress she'd chosen herself, still white, still beautiful, but comfortable, with pockets and a design that celebrated her curves rather than hiding them. Her natural hair was styled in bantu knots, decorated with gold thread. For the traditional Korean portion of the ceremony, she wore a gorgeous hanbok in deep blue. Hyun Jae wore a traditional Korean hanbok as well, looking handsome and slightly nervous in a way that made Dorothy love him even more. When they exchanged vows this time, they were words they'd written themselves. Real promises, chosen freely, with full knowledge of who they were and what they meant to each other. "I promise to see you always," Hyun Jae said, his voice steady, but his hands shaking slightly as he held hers. "To value your strength and support your dreams. To be honest even when it's difficult. To build a life with you, not just beside you, but truly with you. To love you exactly as you are, and to become better because you challenge me to be." Dorothy's vows were equally heartfelt. "I promise to stand with you in darkness and light. To question you when you need it and support you always. To build my own strength and share it with you. To love you not because you saved me, but because you gave me space to save myself. And then you loved the woman I became." When they kissed, it was to genuine cheers and applause, not shocked whispers. This was their wedding, chosen, celebrated, real. At the reception afterward, Dorothy's mother pulled her aside. "When I first heard what happened at your first wedding, I was horrified. I thought your life was ruined. But watching you now, you're radiant, baby. You're powerful. You're exactly who you were meant to be." "I had to lose everything I thought I wanted to find what I actually needed," Dorothy said, watching Hyun Jae across the garden where he was awkwardly but genuinely conversing with her father in broken Igbo. "That man loves you fiercely," her mother observed. "I can see it in the way he looks at you. Like you're the only person in the world." "He does," Dorothy agreed. "And I love him the same way." Later that evening, as the party wound down and guests departed, Dorothy and Hyun Jae found themselves alone on the terrace of the Hanok, looking out over Seoul's glittering skyline. "Do you remember that night at the Shilla Hotel?" Hyun Jae asked, pulling her close. "When everything was falling apart? How could I forget? If you could go back, knowing everything you know now, would you change it? Would you want Donovan to not humiliate you, to go through with that wedding?" Dorothy thought about it seriously. "No, because that humiliation led me here. To you. To this life. To becoming someone I actually like instead of someone I thought I should be." She looked up at him. "Would you?" "God, no." Hyun Jae kissed her forehead. "That was the best decision I ever made, crashing your wedding." "Well, second best." "What was the first?" "Falling in love with you at that auction. Everything else just followed from there." They stood together as the stars appeared above Seoul, the city that had brought them together spreading out below them. Two people who'd found each other in chaos, who'd chosen each other despite every reason not to, who'd built something real and beautiful from what should have been a disaster. What do you want, Dorothy? Hyun Jae asked. For the future. For us. Dorothy considered. I want to expand the foundation. Help more women, not just in Seoul but across Korea. I want to keep working with your businesses, the legitimate ones anyway. I want to travel, show you Lagos, introduce you to my whole world the way you've shown me yours. She paused. And eventually, I want a family. Children who grow up seeing love that's honest and fierce and unconditional. Seeing strength and partnership. Seeing that being different is beautiful. I want all of that too, Hyun Jae said softly. Every bit of it. Though I'll warn you, I have no idea how to be a father. My own was terrible at it. You'll figure it out. You're good at figuring things out. Dorothy smiled. Besides, you managed to crash a wedding, steal a bride, and turn it into a genuine love story. Parenting can't be harder than that. You'd be surprised. They laughed, and the sound carried across the garden, mixing with Seoul's distant sounds, traffic, music, life continuing in the city below. 1 year after the disaster at the Shilla Hotel, Dorothy Adesola stood in her foundation's expanded offices, reviewing the success stories that now covered 2 full walls. Women they'd helped escape abuse. Immigrants they'd connected with jobs and community. Lives changed because Dorothy had taken her own pain and transformed it into purpose. Her phone buzzed. A text from Hyun Jae. Dinner at home tonight? I'm cooking. Well, attempting to cook. Please bring backup food just in case. Dorothy smiled. The man who'd once been Seoul's most dangerous fixer was now trying to master kimchi jjigae and regularly failing. But he tried, because that's what partners did. She texted back, I'll bring food. And wine. And low expectations for your cooking skills. His response was immediate. That's why I married you. You understand me? As Dorothy packed up for the day, her assistant knocked. Mrs. Hyun? There's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent. A referral from the women's shelter in Itaewon. Send her in. A young woman entered, maybe 22, with a bruised cheek she'd tried to cover with makeup and terrified eyes. She was Korean, thin, trembling. Mrs. Hyun? They said you could help. My boyfriend, he won't let me leave. He says he'll kill me if I try. But I can't stay anymore. Dorothy came around the desk, her voice gentle. Sit down. You're safe here. Tell me everything. As the young woman talked, Dorothy listened with the patience Hyun Jae had taught her and the empathy that was purely her own. She knew the story, not the specifics, but the shape of it. The feeling of being trapped. The moment of deciding to save yourself. Here's what we're going to do, Dorothy said when the woman finished. We have a safe house where you can stay tonight. Tomorrow, we'll get you connected with a lawyer free of charge. We'll help you get your things from the apartment safely with security. We'll help you find a job if you need one. And we'll make sure he understands that touching you again would be a very bad idea. The woman's eyes widened. You can do all that? I can do all that and more. Dorothy smiled. You took the hardest step, asking for help. Everything else, we'll handle together. After the woman left with one of Dorothy's staff members who'd escort her to the safe house, Dorothy stood at her office window looking out at Seoul. This city had broken her once. Had torn her apart in front of hundreds of people. Had made her question her worth, her beauty, her value. But it had also given her Hyun Jae. Had shown her strength she didn't know she possessed. Had transformed her from a woman trying to fit into someone else's life into someone building her own empire. That evening, Dorothy came home to their hammock, because it was home now, not just Hyun Jae's house, but theirs together. The smell of burning food greeted her, along with Hyun Jae's frustrated cursing from the kitchen. I brought backup. Dorothy called, holding up bags from their favorite restaurant. Hyun Jae appeared, looking adorably disheveled, with what might have been sauce on his shirt. I swear the recipe was simple. I followed every step. How does it still burn? Because you're a criminal mastermind, not a chef, Dorothy said, kissing him. And that's okay. We all have our talents. They ate dinner on the terrace as the sun set over Seoul, talking about their days. Dorothy told him about the young woman she'd helped. Hyun Jae told her about the new legitimate business deal he'd closed, a partnership with a major corporation that had initially been skeptical, but came around when they saw how he'd transformed. "You're almost respectable now," Dorothy teased. "Only almost?" Hyun Jae raised an eyebrow. "I'm disappointed. I've been working so hard at it." "Well, you're still sleeping with your wife who you acquired by crashing her wedding and essentially kidnapping her. That probably keeps you from being fully respectable." "I didn't kidnap you." "You said yes. Under duress. Under excellent conditions, actually. I saved you from a terrible marriage." They bantered easily, comfortably, like they'd been together for decades instead of just over a year. When the stars appeared above Seoul, Hyun Jae pulled Dorothy close. "Do you know what I thought?" he asked, "that day at the auction when I first saw you? That I had excellent taste in Nigerian art? That too. But mainly, I thought, there's a woman who refuses to be diminished. Who keeps her spine straight even when people are trying to break it. Who deserves to be treasured instead of tolerated." He kissed her temple. "And I thought, I want to be the one to treasure her." Dorothy felt tears prick her eyes, happy ones, always happy now. "You succeeded, you know. At treasuring me. At making me feel valued. At building something real with me instead of just possessing me. That's because you wouldn't let me just possess you. You demanded partnership. You demanded respect. You demanded everything I wasn't sure I could give." He smiled. "And somehow I found I could give it. Because you were worth becoming better for." They stood together on the terrace of their home in Seoul, the city lights spreading out below them like scattered jewels. Two people who'd found each other in the worst possible moment and turned it into the best possible life. Dorothy thought about that day at the Shilla Hotel, standing at an altar, humiliated, destroyed, certain her life was over. She thought about the stranger who'd burst through those doors like something from a fantasy, who'd offered her a choice when she'd had none. She thought about everything that had come after, the fear, the danger, the learning, the transformation. The moment she'd stopped being the woman everyone else wanted her to be and became the woman she actually was. And she thought about love, the complicated, intense, slightly dangerous kind that didn't fix you but gave you the strength to fix yourself. The kind that saw all of you, the good, the bad, the broken parts, and said yes anyway. The kind that challenged you and supported you and made you want to be extraordinary. "What are you thinking about?" Hyun Jae asked. "That I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," Dorothy said. "So am I." In the distance, the Han River reflected Seoul's lights like scattered diamonds. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Dorothy's foundation was expanding, Hyun Jae's businesses required constant attention, and there would always be people who didn't understand their relationship or accept their love. But tonight, in this moment, they were simply two people who had found each other against all odds. Who had chosen each other despite every reason not to. Who had built something beautiful from absolute chaos. Dorothy had walked down an aisle toward humiliation and found love instead. She had married a stranger and discovered her soulmate. She had lost the life she'd planned and gained the life she was meant to live. And standing on that terrace with Hyun Jae's arms around her and Seoul glittering below them like promises made manifest, Dorothy Adesola, no longer the woman who'd been rejected, but the woman who'd been reborn, knew that sometimes the best love stories don't begin with a meet-cute or a first date or a careful courtship. Sometimes they begin with an ending. With a humiliation that breaks you open. With a stranger who sees you when you're at your lowest and offers you not rescue, but choice. With a moment of insanity where you say yes to the unknown because the known has just destroyed you. Sometimes the best love stories begin with chaos and fear and danger. And become something extraordinary anyway. "Ready to go inside?" Hyun Jae asked as the night grew cooler. "In a minute," Dorothy said. "I want to remember this. This moment. This feeling. We have a lifetime of moments ahead of us." "I know. But this one feels important. Like we're standing on the edge of everything we're going to become." Hyun Jae kissed her, soft and deep and full of promise. "Then let's make sure everything we become is worth becoming." And as Seoul's lights burned bright against the darkness, as the city hummed with life and possibility, Dorothy and Hyun Jae stood together, partners, lovers, survivors, fighters, ready to face whatever came next. because they had each other. And that was more than enough. It was everything. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more amazing stories.